What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with Dan Malin. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm Thursday Night Football preview show. It is NFL Week 9. It is Halloween, and we've been tricked into watching the New York Jets on primetime television once again as the Houston Texans take on the Jets in New York. Dan, I feel like almost every week I turn on my TV and the Jets are on it. Now, they obviously faced the Patriots last week, so I watched them, but it feels like every other game's been on primetime for New York since week 1. And they're not a good football team. So
honestly, you could probably make that argument about both New York football teams. Like the NFL and all these networks just love to shove both those teams down our throat in primetime. So if it's not, the Jets in primetime, there's a good chance that the Giants are in primetime, and it's ugly.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I understand the appeal to Aaron Rodgers, but he has not been good. That said, I do think that there's some merit maybe to playing the Jets side of this matchup here today. Short week. Jets are actually 2.5-point home favorites tonight, which I think is, everybody feeling like they're being trapped or tricked a little bit themselves, seeing that they just lost to the Patriots, but they're home, short week. Houston's rolling in here, down a couple of guys in their secondary, down their top 2 wide receivers, and Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins. So certainly a lot to talk about. You did the Showdown playbook over at Fantasy Alarm, which everybody can go check out. And if you are not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, we got a whole bunch of cool things going on right now. Not only do we have the 7-day free trial, which you see that QR code right up there on the screen. You can see the scroll down at the bottom, and you can see the QR code right here as well. We got a Halloween promo sale going on right now. Promo code SCARY when you go to fantasyalarm.com/scary. That's 50% off your All-Pro monthly subscription throughout the rest of the NFL season. So that takes you through the Super Bowl. That's not just NFL content, though. That is all content. That is NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, PGA. NASCAR still going on. We got the fall swing for PGA. Baseball is right around the corner, even though the World Series just ended. Our draft guide usually comes out around January, so you might get that draft guide in there as well. So day-only sale for Halloween, fantasyalarm.com/scary. Promo code SCARY. You get 50% off through the NFL season on your All-Pro monthly subscription. And that kicks off with that 7-day free trial as well. So sign up today. Go check out Dan's Showdown playbook over at Fantasy Alarm as we go through what should be this matchup. If you guys are in the chat and you got some questions starting start sits, you can certainly throw those in there. Dan and I will be happy to answer those for you. Byron's in the chat already. 305 Cubes with a couple of start sit questions for us. So we'll be answering those, giving you our best bets, and breaking down the DFS slate for tonight's action. We'll answer these few questions to start here, Dan. Then we can get into talking about tonight's game. How does that sound?
Cool. Let's do it.
All right. 305 Cubes got a 1 point per completion question. Stroud, Tua, or Herbert? Definitely not feeling confident in Stroud in this matchup. No. But if you had a lean Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Herbert here this week, which direction would you go?
I would go Tua. I also kind of agree with you. I'm not loving Stroud tonight. Not sure if we're going to get to underdog picks, but a lot of my underdog picks for Stroud, I've taken the under on a lot of those. Herbert, I know the passing volume has been getting better, but I still have just that overwhelming fear that they just run the ball so heavy. That's what they want to do in that offense. So I will probably go with Tua. I don't particularly view any of these as like a top 12 play this week, but of those 3, I'll take Tagovailoa.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at talent on the field, right? Tua does get the throw to Tyreek Hill, gets the throw to Jalen Waddle. Buffalo's had a really tough time against Miami too, this year and then dating back into last season as well with that offense. So you get another week of Tua on the field. Maybe that passing attack looks a little better. So I'm in agreement with you. Herbert, I mean, he's got some good numbers, but Vlad McConkey isn't breaking off big plays. Those numbers don't look as good. So if they're able to kind of bottle up McConkey there, maybe Herbert takes a step back. But I like Tua. Then we got Byron wants to know, would you start Tank Dell over Garrett Wilson in a PPR? His other wide receivers are Tyreek and Neighbors. So do you believe in Tank Dell moving into the wide receiver 1 spot? Or Garrett Wilson, who for all statistical purposes is still the wide receiver 1 in New York. He's been out playing Devontae Adams.
I mean, I think a big problem for Adams, too, is like just at his age, I think he's 31, 32. He's just not separating or winning his matchups against opposing defensive backs. But like you said, Garrett Wilson is still, getting more of a target share, runs plenty of routes as well. Like I love the talent overall from Garrett Wilson. Be nice if he could get a younger, quarterback in his prime. So I'm gonna play Wilson over Dell. This is a nightmare matchup for Dell as well. Like the Jets secondary is legit. A couple games ago, I mean, they were without DJ Reed and Michael Carter. but they're back. All three are on the field. I don't know. I have zero faith in Tank Dell because that's a guy who's coming off his own injury, and as explosive as he was last year, he just hasn't quite looked the same this year. I know that there's that wide receiver 1 status for him right now, but I think it would actually benefit him once Nico Collins comes back.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you look at the other wide receivers that are going to be on the field tonight. Xavier Hutchinson, Robert Woods, who I didn't know was still in the league, honestly.
Yeah. John
Metchie could certainly be a guy that steps up.
A lot of unknowns with John Metchie too, and he was great in his final year with Alabama.
Yeah.
Just had a medical condition that impacted his draft status and cost him his rookie season. So very excited to see what he can do. But again, the matchup's just awful.
Yeah, and Metchie, we can talk some underdog picks as well, in a little bit because there's some interesting. A lot of Texans guys have low wide receiver reception totals for tonight that you might be able to take advantage of. A lot of 1.5, 2.5s there. That you might be able to throw into some lineups. Slowbro wants to know Pittman, Adams, or Tracy for tonight. I think Tracy was in concussion protocol?
Yeah, I think he was limited in practice. He hasn't yet officially cleared the protocol.
Okay.
But given that Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback for the Colts, I'm going to go with Pittman.
Yeah, I agree with you. You don't have to play Devontae Adams tonight. Pittman certainly feels like the right play. Love that they're committing to Flacco. I thought it was a super questionable decision. I understand why they did it, but from every metric of even your eyes, Flacco is playing better quarterback than Anthony Richardson would. So good for fantasy to have them back in us. Rodgers or Jameis this week from Nick?
That's Jameis for me.
Yeah.
The thing is Aaron Rodgers is second to last in the NFL in completion percentage over expected. The worst quarterback in the NFL is the one who got benched for Joe Flacco.
Right.
And Jameis looked great last week. And his comments and his speeches are always so rehearsed, but still you appreciate them.
Yeah.
Because they're just absurd. And so I like the guy. I like seeing him get this opportunity. So I will take Jameis over Aaron Rodgers gladly.
Yeah, the Chargers defense has obviously been a little bit better this year in general, but they're traveling on the road, so you kind of give them a little bit of a knock there. And if there's one thing we know about Jameis Winston is they're going to just let him throw, and he'll live and die by the downfield pass, and came through huge for those who played him last week. I'd be definitely willing to play Jameis again this week at home against the Chargers. Then Rodgers on a short week here. Agreed. Looking at some of the underdog picks, though, like you mentioned here, I'll throw up our underdog promo code on the screen. New users, 50% deposit match up to $1,000 and a 99% off free pick for those who play over there. FantasyAlarm.com/underdog, promo code ALARM when you sign up. Not only do we have NFL underdog picks on site, but we do NBA as well, so you can check those out over on Fantasy Alarm if you're into that. Give me some of the underdog picks that you're looking at here tonight, man.
I got two that I feel pretty good about. And one of them I'm seeing that a lot of other people are off. I still like this. I love kicker props. So I'm going to take Kaimi Fairbairn over 1.5 field goals made. He's hit this in 4 straight games. He's hit it in 6 of 8 games this year. I do believe that the Jets have one of the better red zone defenses in the league. I am optimistic that the Texans will still be able to move the ball. A heavy workload game for Joe Mixon, but I'm not quite committed to the over on his 20.5 carries. So instead, I'm going to take Kaimi Fairbairn to kick at least 2 field goals in this game. I like that number. And my other one was CJ Stroud under 20.5 completions.
Okay.
The Jets are holding opposing quarterbacks to just 16.8 completions per game and under 60% completed pass attempts as well. And so for this, against arguably the best defensive secondary in the league, I am going to lean into the under for CJ Stroud on 20.5 completions.
I like that. My underdog article that I wrote this afternoon, I took the under fantasy points on Tank Dell. That was at 11.05. Now it's a half PPR league, or scoring rather, on underdog. That number is now down to 10.85. So hopefully you guys checked out my underdog NFL Pick'em article earlier this afternoon, because now that number has dropped, which makes me feel even better about taking the under. It still might go under again. Honestly,
I tailed that on a lot of the underdog legs that I was building about 45 minutes ago, and I made like 3 or 4 extra legs. I threw that particular one for Tank Dell in each of them because it does kind of make sense. It's half PPR. It's a good sign that it's already moved to 10.85.
So you got it in at 11:05 at the 11:05 mark.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, so it already dropped down to 10.85 fantasy points. Again, it's a half PPR. He's only hit those the last 3 weeks because he's found the end zone. So, if you don't think he's going to score a touchdown today, which, not many people are expecting, passing a ton of passing production here out of the Texans today, the under feels like a pretty strong bet there. A couple other ones that I did look at. I liked the kicker prop. I was in on that with you as well. The other one I was looking at, just sort of a bullish play. I took the Devontae Adams touchdown because I said, you know what, 1.3, 4x. He hasn't gotten it yet. The Texans could be down some secondary guys. They do to get down in the red zone. Rodgers is gonna throw to him. He's still getting targets. He's just not doing much else. And you mentioned like not a lot of separation. Well, the red zone's a good spot where you don't need a lot of separation in the red zone. You just got to have the hands to make it. So
hands and size in the red zone is all that matters.
Exactly. So I think Devontae Adams getting his first touchdown as a Jet, I liked. I also liked the Joe Mixon receptions of 3.5 today. I was talking to Howard Bender on the Fantasy Alarm show just before I went live here. And he was talking about the Jets' ability to probably play a lot of man coverage today. Given who the Texans have in their secondary, and that could allow them to sort of get after Stroud a bit more and really rush the passer. And the best way to beat a pass rush is just throw screens, right? And if Joe Mixon chips and gets out on the flat, they might be able to make some plays. And they're down so many wide receivers. So I kind of like the Mixon over 3.5 catches today, just out of a necessity that they may have to dump down to him, given probably lack of separation from the other guys that are on the field, and just the general pass rush is probably going to get this route tonight.
Yeah, I kind of dig that. I was thinking about that one because the thought process is right. I think the only reason I laid off that is because I didn't like the negative correlation with taking the over on Mixon's receptions because I was already so heavily invested on the under for Stroud completions.
Sure.
I don't hate that, though. I do like the thought process. And for my DFS lineups, I'm kind of hoping that's the case. But for underdog, I was already too committed for one prop that I didn't want to. I could hedge, but at this point, I don't think I'm going to.
Yeah, no, I understand completely on there. Sleeper fantasy, is it a trick or treat? They discounted CJ Stroud's passing yards down to 168.5 for today.
My goodness.
Is that a trick or a treat for you? Would you go higher or lower than 168.5 passing yards for Stroud?
Tricks, treats, and traps. My goodness. Let me take a look what the Jets have done their last couple games. Again, like great secondary. All right, so they held the New England Patriots quarterbacks to 136, but Russell Wilson went for 260. Josh Allen went for 210. Sam Darnold went for 171. Man, that's tough. I'll take the over. What was it originally?
It was. Hold on, I gotta go to my app, my phone for this because Sleeper doesn't have. It doesn't have a web app. Their original line was 225.5. I'm sorry, it's 158.5. Not even 168. 158.5. So even lower. They dumped it 70 yards.
Wow.
For you today.
Oh my God.
That's a
he's hit that in all but one game this year. I think you can take that even against this Jets defense. Oh my God, that's the trappiest trap ever.
Right. I'm checking out to see what we got for our what our guy Grande has him for passing yards. Grande's got him for 225.4 over at Fantasy Alarm Fanjection. So we'll ride with that on the over. Again, 150.5. Such a cheap play there. What do we got for questions? Alan wants to know, do we got Dell, McBride, Xavier Legette, Kareem Hunt, Darnell Mooney in a PPR? Need 3 of those.
I think I would go McBride, Hunt, and Mooney. Legette is intriguing just with the departure of Deontay Johnson. Still not sold on Bryce Young.
No.
So and it sucks to sit Dell, but at the same time, he just doesn't look as good as he did last year before he sustained the leg injury. So I will take McBride, Hunt, and Mooney. Hunt I don't love, but at the same time, if he falls into the end zone, he gets the high value touches with Kansas City. So if he falls into the end zone, you're kind of happy with that. And Mooney's been great for Atlanta, and that's a really good game script.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's the way I would go as well here. In that situation, hopefully, now they didn't commit to Bryce Young more than this week. They kind of said like the quarterback position still fluid. They're going to give Young another start, and I guess they'll kind of see the direction they go. I don't understand why they would go back to Dalton to win football games.
Yeah.
If Bryce Young is their future, like it feels like a very weird situation. If you were to start Dalton this week, it'd be like, all right, he got into the car accident last week, wasn't good to go. Gonna go Bryce Young. Dalton practiced this week, so why are you going back to Bryce Young and then saying we're not committed to a quarterback moving forward? That feels like the Carolina Panthers are just being the Carolina Panthers here and just.
On an unrelated note, Jonathan Brooks is practicing. He practiced in full, I think, 2 straight days. What kind of run do you think he gets this week if he plays?
Limited. I think they'll work him in. I think whatever Miles Sanders was getting goes to Jonathan Brooks now at this point. And then it probably works itself into a 50-50. I don't see them, rushing him into this massive workload because of the injury that he's obviously coming back from.
Mm-hmm.
But they obviously aren't as committed to Chuba. Chuba's been great. If anything, maybe it made them added some trade value to Chuba Hubbard or something like that. But I don't necessarily think that we're going to see too much from him right away. I also feel the same way about TJ Hawkinson this week. Again, I know he's been ready to go for it a little bit. They kind of held him out. He's going to be playing this week. But what kind of snap share? Like, I would be shocked if he goes out there and plays 70% of the offensive snaps. Feels more like he'd be in that 30% range, maybe red zone play specifically to kind of get him in the flow. And then you see them kind of gradually build up what they can do at Hawkinson because they're playing long-term games. They don't really need Hawkinson now. They need him ready for the second half of the year. So
for sure,
kind of where I'm at. Some overall, like I mentioned, the Jets into this one currently home favorites. The line's at -2.5, 120 on the spread there. Over under 43. That line was 42.5 this morning, so moved up a half a point. Jets -148 on the money line. Texas +124. You got a lean here on the spread in total?
I'm leaning towards the Texans side. Even when I started writing the Showdown playbook on Tuesday, I couldn't believe where the books actually opened with the Jets favored. Like I said, Rodgers has been bad, second to last in completion percentage over expected. Breece Hall has looked great at times. Breece Hall has looked underwhelming at times. Yep. And I was very confused with the usage last week between Hall and Braylon Allen. I actually think that this is a heavy workload kind of game for Breece Hall. I thought that they wanted to limit his touches last week because they knew that they were on a short week. And if you look at it, over half of Braylon Allen's carries last week were short yardage situations.
Yeah.
And so everyone's going to point to the factor, if they're just looking at the box score, they're going to see that his YPC isn't all that great and that he looks inefficient. But at the same time, he was only largely being used in the short yardage situation. So I think that they were just trying to spare Hall for this game. Still not a great matchup. In some of my underdog picks, I even took Will Anderson to get at least over 0.5 sacks.
I like that.
But again, Adams isn't separating given his age. I think the Jets even know this too, and that's why they're going heavy with Garrett Wilson. But I just think that the way Joe Mixon has been playing in games that he started and finished healthy, he's just been outstanding. I have no idea why the Bengals never gave him this kind of run or this kind of opportunity. So could be a very heavy workload game for Joe Mixon. So I am on the side of the Texans, and I can't bet in the state of Georgia. I always hate giving out betting advice, but I can do underdog and things like that. But if I was to bet, I would probably take Texans +2, probably lay some money on Texans money line as well.
Yeah, Prize Picks is headquartered in Atlanta, so you got all.
I've seen their offices; they're very nice.
Yeah, you got all the pick'em sites there. I threw Joe Mixon up here. Obviously, again, you did the Showdown playbook over at Fantasy Alarm. Outside of the game, he got hurt right in Chicago. Yeah. The guy has been an absolute monster. Love the touches for him here. You said it was 20.5 was the line that he got tonight
for carries. Yeah, I think it was 20.5. Very tempting, but if I'm not feeling overly confident in it, that's fine. And I think even in those games where he started and finished healthy, I think in 3 of 4 of those he's gone for at least 25 carries. So that is an argument for this game.
Yeah.
But he's coming off back-to-back games with 25 carries, even this past Sunday. So given a short week, I didn't love that that the line was set in the 20s, and so I couldn't fade it. I couldn't take the under. I couldn't take the over. So I'm just kind of laying off that one.
That works. When you're building out some DFS lineups here today, what's your like go-to captain build?
Going right back to Joe Mixon.
Hey, put him back on the screen.
He is my favorite captain just because of in a game flow like this, it's just volume. But I also we have two great secondaries, interesting storylines all around for these. I couldn't really commit to Tank Dell at captain. The yards per route run are way down from last year. I think fantasy data points noted that in 2023 he was running 2.4 yards per route run. This year it's 1.08.
Yeah.
I think his yards per game has been like cut in half. Now the fact that Nico Collins and Diggs are both out helps him, but I don't think so in this game. Again, Jets secondary is just so damn good.
Yeah. I agree.
So I love Mixon, just volume, and like you said, there are going to be opportunities for him to catch passes in the flat.
I got an update here from Schefter, not relating to this game, but Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua left practice today with a knee injury, according to the team. So Puka just cannot stay out of the medical tent there. So,
you want to know something? This was actually a thing with him when he was at BYU. And so it probably is going to persist as his career goes on. Like last year was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Completely healthy rookie year. But there were reports and people that were in the know at BYU that said that is the outlier with him.
Yeah.
It does tend to have these nagging injuries that kind of hamper him a little bit, and they will cost him games. So I loved the outlook for Nacua going into this matchup against I think they play Seattle, but
yeah, really good spot. I was high on Stafford this week at the price tag, because he's so cheap. I think he was under 6K on DraftKings, making it pretty easy to stack. But we'll see what happens. Again, no firm updates other than he left today's practice with a knee injury. Mr. Grapefruit here wants to know, is this going to be a Xavier Hutchinson game? Do we think Sauce Gardner takes on Tank Dell? How are you ranking the secondary receivers here for Houston?
I have a little bit of bias. I think you could kind of tell my excitement with John Michie earlier.
Sure.
I think they know what they have with Hutch and Robert Woods, especially at Robert Woods at his age. Everybody in the NFL knows what Robert Woods is. I don't think that Hutchinson's been a little inconsistent at times. There are a lot of unknowns still with John Michie. Had the great year at Alabama. He's a former second-round draft pick, and just couldn't get the field last year. And the Texans, to their credit, have kind of hit gold on receivers. They nailed it with Nico Collins. They nailed it with Tank Dell when he was healthy last year before he got hurt.
They had Noah Brown, and Noah Brown was out there performing really well for them, right? So
and then they bring in Stephon Diggs. So there just hasn't been an opportunity with Michie, but there is now. So he is the one that I'm probably most interested in. He only ran 9 routes last week, and he was targeted on 4 of them.
Yeah.
And so if they can just expand that, obviously he's not going to maintain a 44% target per route run rate. That's impossible. But if they can just expand upon it, he can still do more with just, a little more volume. So Michie is probably the one that I'm most interested in.
If you do like that Michie, if he's your guy tonight, over on Underdog, you do the alt line, bump him up to 2.5 receptions. It's 1.4x multiplier on that. So
I might have to build some out with that.
If you not to keep sending you back to making Underdog picks here, but
no, the NBA picks have been building my bankroll lately. You guys have been crushing it.
Good to hear. Love that. Danny wants to know: should I start mixing in Brees tonight or sub one for Dobbins? So play both running backs in this game, or play J.K. Dobbins in that matchup against Cleveland.
I would definitely play Mixon. I'm very more so on the I'm probably going to play Brees Hall over Dobbins, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
That's tough, though.
What's your thoughts on Dobbins overall this year? To me, I keep feeling like the shoe is going to drop on him. I've been burned many times before. The yards per carry the last couple of games have not been great either. 3.4, 2.9, 3.8. He just benefited from volume, and then he's got touchdowns in 2 of those 3 games. Obviously he started the year, shot out of a cannon. Everybody's like, whoa, like this is the Dobbins that we saw, early on with the Ravens here. It's starting to trail off a bit. What's your overall outlook here on Dobbins?
Pretty much the same thing, if I'm being honest. Since week 2, the efficiency has gone way down. I think his explosive run rate has gone way down. I think I saw a stat that said in the first 2 weeks, his explosive run rate was about 14.5%. Since then, I think it's dropped to under 3.
He's averaging 3.16 yards per carry since from week 3 on. So the last 5 weeks, about 3 yards a carry for J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, and Pro Football Focus has the Browns defense ranked number 1 against the run. So I would probably just go with Mixon and Hall tonight. Probably going to sit J.K. Dobbins. Kind of does feel like the shoe is going to fall off and that Dobbins is due for an injury at some point.
Yeah, listen, here's the thing I love about both running backs is they both catch footballs and on both sides. So whoever is trailing is likely going to get some targets. We know Breece Hall's really used in the passing game. Mixon's capable of being used in the passing game. But if either of these teams are also up, those are the guys that are going to get those carries to sort of run out the clock as well, and they're capable of breaking off some big plays. So I would go with both running backs in this game as well here, Danny, and go check that out there. Obviously, Mechie, do you have any other dart throws for tonight? Like, what's your one tournament separator for you? Not to spoil everything for everybody.
So I don't necessarily think we're gonna get low ownership on John Michie. I love the price tag on DraftKings. If you want a guy that's going to be probably very low owned, Cade Stover, tight end for the Texans. I believe he's a rookie. I was texting with Andrew Cooper earlier this week, and I said, hey, no Diggs, no Collins. What are the odds that maybe the Texans run more 12 personnel with Dalton Schultz and Cade Stover? All I was really trying to do was just talk myself into Stover as a viable play at $1,600 on DraftKings. I think he did see a little more involvement. If I could be mistaken. What did he do last week? Had
2 catches, 3 targets.
Not great. But again, like he's seen an uptick in playing time since Collins landed on IR. So it's not. I don't love it as much as I love Michie, but I also know like Stover will carry signisignificantly less ownership.
You got 1.5 receptions is 1.4 over on Underdog. His total receiving yard total is 7.5. Coop is actually really good at doing this with tight ends. He'll take that like secondary tight end and just take the over on like that reception yard total.
I would take the over on the yardage than the receptions.
Right. Because like if he catches one pass, which he's largely done, 27 yards, 15 yards, long of 14 yards, like more often than not, those guys one ball. It's because the defense isn't looking at them and they're able to make big plays out of that, because they're not expected to catch the football to go to them. So he hits some of those sometimes and sends me screenshots. I'm like, you bet how much on that guy to get 4.5 receiving yards today? Like what? And it works. So
CJ Mosley's inactive for the Jets too.
Yep. So Stover 7.5 receiving yards. Again, 3 of the 5 games he's had longs of 14, 15, and 27 yards there. So could be a little sneaky play there if he just catches one ball there. So any other outlooks here? Anything else you're looking at in this game that we should take note of?
Well, Greg Zuerlein landed on IR, and he's been arguably the worst kicker in the league. I have not yet confirmed who is going to be the kicker for the Jets. I would probably fade both. You could probably guess that I'm pretty heavy on Kaimi Fairbairn. I have at least 1, possibly 2 lineups with him at captain. That's built around the game script that this is just an ugly game. I correlated that with Jets DST at the flex and just went Mixon as a flex play as well, hoping that he can get to 20 points. But when you play kicker at captain, you're kind of hoping for like 4 or 5 field goals.
Hey, against the Jets and 49ers, Moody on opening night had like 26 fantasy points or something like that with the number of field goals he had. With Alan Lazard out, do we see Mike Williams step in, or do we think there's a different receiver to maybe throw some darts at?
I have 0 exposure to Mike Williams just because I'm convinced that Aaron Rodgers hates him.
Oh, he hates him, 100%.
But if we filter it by the Jets, I mean, Gibson's a guy that also gets a lot of run as a returner as well. So there's good correlation if you're to play Gibson and the Jets DST. Let's say that he takes one back for a touchdown. You're getting points for 2 touchdowns. Essentially, if you have the DST and Xavier Gibson. He would be probably my preferred pivot, but I also don't hate Ruckert either. 3 receptions last week. He doesn't do a ton, so you're kind of hoping that he can maybe find the end zone. But Conklin's a good pivot as well. I just have such little faith in Mike Williams, but in the spot with Alan Lazard, they almost have to force feed him routes. I don't necessarily think Aaron Rodgers is going to go out of his way to get the ball to Williams by any chance.
No, I largely agree with you there. So that's a look at this Thursday night football game, everybody. Again, I know it's Halloween. Appreciate you all tuning in. We'll be back here live again on Sunday, 11 to 12 Eastern. You can go check out Bender and Coop from 10 to 11 over on Sirius XM. We're in the Discord. If you have any questions, you can find us there. You can give us a follow. And again, we got the 7-day free trial going on if you scan that QR code. But we also have our Halloween only special going on. First, 50% off your monthly All-Pro through the NFL season. That takes you through the Super Bowl there. Fanstorm.com/scary, promo code SCARY. Save you 50% off. That's $19.98 a month through the Super Bowl here for all access to all Fantasy Storm content. And that kicks off with the 7-day free trial included. So go check us out. Scan the QR code. Sign up. Fanstorm.com/scary. Promo code SCARY. Dan, thanks for stepping in here today. I hope your showdown lineups find some success tonight, man.
It's going to be ugly, but appreciate you having me on. I'm a lot more excited about my underdog picks than my DFS picks.
Well, that's certainly an outlook to have. So good luck, everybody, tonight, and we'll catch you later.